Hi, this is Mike Gminski speaking. You're watching The Rebound with Coach Matt Doherty.
Welcome to The Rebound with Coach Matt Doherty.
Welcome to The Rebound. I'm Matt Doherty, and I'll be your host. On this show, we focus on the topic of leadership and overcoming adversity in an open and raw kind of way. We discuss setbacks and how to rebound from them. With me today is Mike Gminski, All-American basketball player at Duke. Upon graduation in 1980, he was a career leader in points, rebounds, and block shots. In 2002, Mike was voted as one of the 50 greatest players in the history of the ACC. He led his team to the 1978 National Championship game. His jersey number 43 is retired at Duke. Mike was the 7th pick in the 1980 NBA draft. He played 14 years in the league. Then he went on to become a broadcaster. Mike, thanks for being on the show. Tell us about your experience playing basketball at Duke.
Well, Matt, it was interesting that recruiting, as you know, was a lot different back then in the 70s. And, a lot didn't really happen in your senior year, but I made the decision in my sophomore year that I was going to graduate early. I didn't play in a great conference, and I felt that I was ready to play in college. And I knew I wanted to play in the ACC, Duke. Actually, I found Duke. I went to Maryland's basketball camp, and while I was there, a guy named Terry Chili, who played at Duke, was a counselor, and we met, talked about Duke. I got interested. He had the coaches come up and meet me. They got into the process, and I visited Duke, and I knew that I was home. I fell in love with the campus. I loved Coach Foster. I thought things were going in the right direction. They had Jimmy Spanarkel the year before, and it just was a great, great fit for me, Matt. And going there, I had no idea, about Duke Carolina, the rivalry, and I really didn't know about the intensity of ACC basketball, but I was indoctrinated fairly quickly, and what an awesome experience.
What other schools were you considering?
Maryland was actually the first one in the door up in my high school, and South Carolina with Coach McGuire was very aggressive. North Carolina was in the mix. Actually, I spent the weekend there that summer. Walter Davis, God rest his soul, was my host, and met with the coaching staff. And I just, for me, Duke, like I said, it was the perfect fit. And I will say this, and one of the classiest moves after I made that decision, Coach Smith wrote me a letter congratulating me and saying he was looking forward to competing against me for 4 years. I just thought that was one of the more awesome things that happened to me in my recruiting process.
Yeah, not surprised that a lot of former recruits would say the same about him. Certainly a class act. You reclassified, so as a result, you step on campus as a 16-year-old freshman at Duke. Is that right?
I graduated from high school at 16. I just turned 17 in August, and then went for freshman orientation later that month. So just barely turned 17. Brad Doherty was kind of in that same situation at Carolina. He was very young when he got to school. But yeah, I guess I was ahead of my time in reclassifying. But I felt like I was able to compete because I had scrimmaged against college guys when I was in high school. And, I didn't dominate like I did in high school, but I did well. And so I felt pretty good about making that move, even though I was extremely young. And I found myself, Matt, my first year of basketball was in the 8th grade. I played 3 years in high school. And here I am, only 4 years of organized basketball. There was no AAU and none of that.
Right.
And I'm starting as a freshman, my first game in the ACC. So it was very much a baptism by fire.
Tell the audience, since they can't see how big you are, how big were you as an 8th grader? And then how big were you entering Duke University as a 17-year-old?
My growth, I never had a growth spurt. My progression, I was 6'5" in the eighth grade, 6'7" as a freshman, 6'9" as a sophomore, and then 6'11" as a junior. So it was a pretty slow growth, and I probably grew another half to 3/4 of an inch when I was in college. But yeah, very, very tall, very, very early on.
So you played obviously for Bill Foster, and went to the Final Four national championship game in 1978, and then played 14 years in the NBA. Who was the best teammate, leader, college or pro, that you ever played with?
I would say in college it was Jimmy Spanarkel, who was our captain, who was fabulous. Really brought that Jersey City swag with him, and was not a gifted athlete per se, but just so very tough minded, and just a great vocal leader. I was more of a guy who led by example. I was not really vocal in college. And in the pros, probably Buck Williams, one of the best.
Buck Williams.
Yeah, one of the best, another ACC guy from Maryland. And, in his own way, and Charles Barkley is like a brother to me, who I played with in Philadelphia. And in his own way, I mean, he was so passionate about us. He was an unbelievable teammate. And again, was a great leader in his own style. Maybe not classic, but Charlie was awesome.
What coach in the NBA did you really feel was one of the best that you've been around, and why?
I'll tell you what, Matt. Jimmy Lynam when I was in Philly, and the reason being, I mean, he understood people better than anybody I was ever around. He had a thing before practice that he would go around, and guys were stretching and doing their own thing kind of leading up to practice, and he would talk to at least 10 guys before every practice, and mostly with the guys on the second team, and maybe even some of the guys who weren't playing big minutes. And he wanted them to feel a part of what was going on. Wow. To have everybody invested 1 through 12. And just a really, really good at X's and O's, but could really manage people.
The thing, and one of the reasons I do this is because I've had to rebound from losing my job as the head coach at North Carolina. And I went on this leadership journey, and I realized I felt really good about what I call the science of coaching, the X's and the O's. Where I made the mistake was the art of coaching, which is the culture piece, the soft skills. And now as an executive coach, we talk about this all the time. People hire for hard skills. What does your resume look like? What have you done? How long have you done it? But they get fired for soft skills because they don't have any people skills. So the fact that you said Jimmy Lynam is a great point of that from your experience in the NBA.
And just knowing him, I would put Phil Jackson in that same mode, who was just,
Phil who? Phil who?
Yeah. Hey, he won a few championships.
So where did you play for Phil Jackson?
I did. I never played for him, but I knew Phil very well. Actually, I got to meet him my rookie year with the Nets, and he was getting into coaching, and then our paths would cross when he started down in the CBA as a coach. So I knew him. I knew of his philosophy. I knew what, in watching him, never played for him, but I knew exactly how he was conveying his message and what he was doing within the framework of that team. And Matt, nowadays, maybe, all the modes of communication that we have a function and are highly useful, but maybe they've taken the interpersonal skills away from things a little bit. And, Jimmy never texted us, he talked to us, and it's
what a compliment.
And he coached Charles Barkley hard, and Charles never wanted to admit that he was being coached hard, but he always got Jimmy's message, and it was just that face-to-face interpersonal thing.
Well, Mike, this is great. Let's go to break, and we come back. Mike Gminski is going to discuss the most significant rebound of his life, and it wasn't on the basketball court. The Rebound is sponsored by Sector Spider ETFs, a unique family of exchange-traded funds that divide the S&P 500 into 11 sector index funds. You can buy just the sectors you like or customize the S&P 500 by weighting the 11 sectors to meet your financial objective. Please visit them on the web at sectorspiders.com. That's sector, SPDRS.com.
Alps Portfolio Solutions Distributor, a registered broker-dealer, is the distributor for the Select Sector Spider Trust.
Mike, tell us about your rebound story.
Well, Matt, I'll go back to high school. My age 15 was a big year for me. It was my sophomore year. I really started to blossom as a player. I made All-State, and it was when I started drinking. I was with I was a young guy on an older team, and I was with guys, and we went out afterwards and we drank beer, and I saw them drinking beer, and I was not forced into it by any means. There was some alcohol issues on one side of my family. So it was something that, I was my choice. I fell into it and continued in high school, continued through college. At the moment, never paid any consequences for it. It was no drugs, no hard liquor, just drinking beer and enjoying the college life. And, I graduated with honors and, never affected my play, same kind of thing through college or through my NBA experience. But then when I got into broadcasting, I started drinking more cocktails. And, as a broadcaster, you're traveling with the team, but you're not a part of the team. So there's a lot of free time. So, there's starting to be some glasses of wine at lunch. And, I never drank on a broadcast or before a broadcast, but, it was escalating. And then in 2000, my son was 2.5 years old. My ex-wife's business went under, and there were financial issues. There were a lot of pressures on the marriage that really got to both of us. And I kept on self-medicating, as it were. And finally, our marriage dissolved. And I met a young woman and had fallen in love with her. Her name is Sarah Culpepper. She was 23 years younger than me. And life was good. We got engaged in 2013, and she had some health issues. She had a congenital heart defect and also some liver issues. And we were dealing with those. And in 2015, she had a catastrophic failure of her liver, and she basically died of an internal hemorrhage right in my arms.
Wow.
I'm trying to revive her with 911 on the line, and blood is everywhere. And that it threw me into shock. It completely short-circuited my wiring. I did her memorial service. The hardest thing I've ever done is doing her eulogy. And I rather than do the smart thing and seek counseling, seek grief counseling, seek a minister, I decided my pride and my athletic pride got in the way, and I decided I can handle this, but I'm going to self-medicate. And my drinking escalated. My Duke teammates gave me about a 2-year hall pass on my grieving, but they saw that I was going in the wrong direction. They tried to have an intervention for me in 2017. And I was not ready to hear that message. I cussed them up and down. Kenny Denard was the point man on that. And then after that, Matt, I went dark. I cut everybody off. I didn't want to hear another thing. I went into isolation for a couple of years. And then COVID hit in 2020. We were isolating in place. And then it turned out to be a blessing because I went into hyperdrive. I was drinking between 1/5 and 2/5 of vodka a day.
Wow.
And my son Noah was living with me at the time. And in an effort to hide the recycling binge that was going on, I was throwing these bottles out into the backyard, and he found them one day. I was out resupplying at the ABC store, and I came home, and there were all these dirty, filthy bottles on the kitchen table with a note from him that said, "Dad, I love you. I want to help you."
Oh,
And
my God.
that brought me to my knees.
What year was that, Mike? And how old was Noah?
Noah was 21 at the time, going on 22, and that was in the late spring of 2020.
So what did you do? You saw that note.
I fell to my knees in shame and cried. And when he got home, we had a tearful conversation. He wrote me a couple letters. I didn't immediately get help, but in July of that year, in July 10th, he had an intervention for me with the two guys. The place where I went to get sober was called Rebound. Oddly enough, down in Florida, and
we might have some branding issues. I'll have my attorney.
Yeah, you all can chat. I'll put you in contact with one another. But so my son brings out. I'm sitting there with a glass of vodka, and he brings out the computer. It was a Zoom intervention with these two guys from Rebound, and there was a woman on there who was our maid of honor, who was in recovery for a number of years herself. And I was begging at this point, Matt, to hear the message, and I had to hear it. I had to hear it. Noah was the one I needed to hear it from. And you know what? It goes back to my coaching too, or as a player, because I was not strong enough to set all this up on my own. I needed to be coached into this. And Noah was the one who, and within 10 minutes, I said, when can I come?
That is such a beautiful thing that your son was there for you, because in sometimes our hardest times, most difficult times, people will scatter.
Yep.
And you've been divorced.
Yep.
And so your fiance's
gone,
passed away.
Yeah.
So you have Noah and some friends that you've pushed away, but Noah didn't stop. I mean, he came back at you.
Yep. And gave me love and gave me support and gave me the message that I needed. And you know what, Matt, right after that intervention, I drove down to Rebound on July 13th and they told me, because I was such a high seizure risk because of the amount I was drinking, plus I was taking Xanax and Prozac, that I had to.
Sure, why not? I mean, if you're going to go big, right, Mike? Well, you were an All-American.
Well, yeah, about that. I mean, I was a world-class drinker too. But Matt, I mean, if I had tried to go cold turkey then, there was a 50% chance I would have died. I would have had a.
You would have died.
I would have a seizure. They told me to keep drinking. So I'm in the back seat of the car driving down to Florida drinking. I had got a bottle of vodka, and I get down there a hot mess that night. And July 14, it was my first day in detox, and that's my sober date, July 14, 2020.
July 14th, 2020. Wow, you're coming on your 4-year anniversary. I do. At Carolina, we learned how to do some math. So I laughed, I joked, and anybody watching this, Mike and I share this bond of sobriety. Mike, you and I laugh about this. 1979, I'm on my official visit to Duke University, my first visit. I see you with this sweet Camaro Z28, and that night, your big ass hand hands me a Budweiser, and I start drinking. I, like you, played varsity basketball as a freshman, and my parents said to me, my biggest concern is that you're going to go out with the older players and party and drink.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no. But, I did a little bit. And so the first time I drank, I got drunk, and that was a sign of alcoholism, said the counselor I went to in 1987. So fast forward, I don't make the NBA. I'm really down. I self-medicate. and I become an all-city drinker in New York City. I mean, I set records. If there was an Olympic podium, you and I would probably team up and be on top getting the gold medal. And I think we have to hit bottom. My bottom was waking up on a porch in Manahawkin, New Jersey. And it wasn't the porch of the house I was staying at. And I was scared. I got a problem. And I had alcoholism. You know, I'm Irish, right? Mm-hmm. We got somebody in our tree is an alcoholic. And so I sought help, and that was 34 years ago. And I just think that people ask, what's the thing you're most proud of in your life? And a lot of people can point to your NBA career, your jersey hanging in the rafters, me playing on a national championship team with Michael Jordan. My family, no. The thing I'm most proud of is sobriety, giving up alcohol 34 years ago, because without that, I don't have this. Mm-hmm. And I imagine you feel the same. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that, and especially Matt, I was 2 weeks shy of my 61st birthday when I went into treatment, and for guys our age, I mean, it's a decision. You can say, all right, I'm going to fight for my life to get it back, or I'm near the end anyway. I'm just going to keep going on this path. And I love my son too much. And I got to the point I wanted to fight. I wanted to fight for me. I saw all the things that I'd done to the people around me, and I wanted a better life. And I knew that by wanting that, it was going to be better for all those around me, including my son. You know, the thing that I live right now in humility and in being humble before Christ, but also in gratitude. Also in gratitude, Matt, and that's part of my Christianity and my belief. But when I made that decision to go into treatment, I called all the people who I had shunned and cut off, and not one of them left me. They were all extremely happy for me. They were so supportive, and I was so blessed that I didn't lose anybody in that process. And that's just by the grace of God that happened.
Well, you're a believer, and grace is a big part of being a Christian. And you showed real humility by going and contacting those people. A friend of mine once said, vulnerability is the new invincibility. Mm-hmm. And you showed great vulnerability. Mike, we've got about a minute to go, 45 seconds. Tell us what you're doing now, some of the most important work of your life.
Well, a couple of things, Matt. One, my ministry and spreading my message about my faith and my Christianity. And I'm working at a place called Sana House here in Charlotte, SANA. SanaRecovery.com is the website, and we have 2 sober living homes. And then we're helping guys make that transition from treatment back into the world. And, I'm working as a mentor coach there, and then doing some outreach. And then also a place called the Emerald School of Excellence, which is a recovery high school here in Charlotte. We've had great success with kids, high school kids who are in recovery, making that choice at an early age. When I started to drink,
right.
And it's been an incredibly rewarding experience. It's emeraldschool.org is their website. And I just have immersed myself in the recovery community, Matt, in the faith community. And I see that doing until the breath leaves my body.
Well, Mike, it's an unbelievable interview. Great story. Thank you for joining us today and sharing your rebound story.
Matt, thank you. And you've been a blessing in my life and continue to be that, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Leadership is a learned behavior. We all lead in some way, shape, or form. We all deal with adversity. And when you do, I challenge you to rebound. I challenge you to learn and grow. If you'd like to contact me, you can reach me at dohertycoaching.com. That's DOHERTY.com. Thanks for tuning in.